Today, I wanted to talk about a martial arts topic, but applied to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So, I used to study Jeet Kune Do when I was a little kid, besides doing mixed martial arts before it was something that was even labeled that, where Bruce Lee tried to come up with a concept to make you a complete fighter. And Bruce Lee did grapple, he learned from Gene LaBelle. So, one thing is, what Bruce Lee would talk about is something called the classical mess. What is that? The classical mess applies to somebody training or a martial arts system taught in a way through katas and forms and in a way that's not realistic. So you're doing the katas and the forms and the shadow boxing and stuff like that, but you don't know how to apply it in real life. You haven't adapted it to real life fighting, and then it becomes something almost mystical that when you're put in a situation, it's not going to work. And the greatest example of that was UFC number one, Royce Gracie versus all other people in different martial arts. And in the beginning, that's what it was. It wasn't a mixed martial art fighter versus another one. Both of them do wrestling, both of them do jiu-jitsu, both of them do Muay Thai or boxing or whatever it is. It's like it was judo versus jiu-jitsu versus boxing versus kung fu versus savate versus sumo wrestling versus American kickboxing, karate. It was style versus style, and jiu-jitsu always won. So now that doesn't exist. Everybody does a mix of martial arts. But a lot of times with the traditional martial arts, especially back in the days, you would do a lot of katas and training in a way that wasn't realistic or conducive towards fighting. So you're constantly punching in the air, blocking, punching in the air. Nobody's, you're not responding to timing, you're not responding to distance, you're not building reflexes and speed according to your own instincts and coordination and abilities to react. It was just doing everything in the air, and that's it. So next thing you know, somebody has a fight for the first time, which happened for some people in the UFC in the beginning, and they don't know how to get the timing for a moving, uncooperative opponent. And now all of a sudden their death touch, because they're a 55-degree black belt, is not working. Also, I remember Bruce Lee in Enter the Dragon when he goes to fight the guy who murdered his sister. He has the board, I think it's Bill Walsh, and he punches it, breaks it, and Bruce Lee goes, "Boards don't hit back." Same concept. When you're training either just on a heavy bag or in the air, and you're getting all of a sudden these belt levels from your katas and forms according to what your teacher wants, okay, you've memorized patterns, but can you use them in real life? Most people can't. And then when you have the pressure of somebody punching you back, it changes everything. Like Mike Tyson says, like everybody's brave until they get punched in the face, or everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. Same exact thing. Once you get hit, your black belt could go right out the window because you never felt that before, and oh my god, that hurt. And I didn't know somebody could hit me like that or even catch me because I'm a mystical ninja. So this is what Bruce Lee meant by the classical mess. So when you had the first UFCs where you had the martial arts styles that did that type of training, fighting styles that didn't do that type of training, those styles actually held their own and did pretty good. Savate kickboxing, shoot wrestling, the wrestlers did amazing, right? Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Judo, Muay Thai. You had these people do really good in the UFC, even though they only had one art. Why? Because the way that I always put it is they train in a Western way. Was you practice it, you practice the move against a target, so you're getting at least an idea of how far or close you have to be to hit it, and then you're having with an opponent who's helping you get the move, and then one who's not cooperating, and then you're sparring. All this tests whether the thing that you're learning works or doesn't, or if you're able to make it work or not. I had a friend in the Marines who did Kung Fu. All of the forms that he did, he was a rarity. He could make it work sparring because we used to always get together and it was always different styles and we would spar and see what happens. I remember going against a Taekwondo champion And then every time he threw a high kick, I would kick his leg out from under him. He's like, you can't do that. I'm like, why not? I was doing Muay Thai. It's like, why can't I do that? I remember going against a black belt in judo and I got his back and choked him out. He's like, you can't do that in judo. I go, well, we're not doing judo. So you want to know the rules for that art that you're practicing and might be limiting you. And the thing that happened with wrestling, judo, sambo, Muay Thai, jiu-jitsu, these are arts that you're actually practicing and sparring a lot with a non-cooperative person. So this is what Bruce Lee meant with the classical mess. You had a lot of people practicing in a way that wasn't realistic. Plus, when you get hit and it hurts, you get to see how you deal with it, how you are under pressure, especially with jiu-jitsu. You might have somebody on top of you that has a little bit of a belly that's smothering you where you can't breathe and twisting your neck, and you're taking little gasps of air to breathe just to relax enough to wait for the timing to either get out or to just survive. Other people in the beginning too with jujitsu, somebody could have a lot of pressure on them and they tap and you're like, I didn't do anything. They're like, well, I don't feel comfortable, I can't breathe. So with jujitsu especially, you get to learn how to be comfortable in the discomfort, and this is super important. And the moves that you're learning, hopefully in the school that you're in, are applicable to gi, no gi, MMA, fighting, more than just sports stuff, because remember, it's a martial art. Why did I bring this up to begin with? What does the classical mess have to do with jiu-jitsu? I don't know, I don't see it. We learn moves, we drill, and we roll. Well, the problem these days, if you look at Instagram, there's a lot of fancy shit going on that are low percentage moves that can end you up in a bad position or make a bad position even worse, or make you go for something that's inherently dangerous to your well-being. And there's a lot of this now. What makes John Danaher so special? He takes high percentage moves and deletes all the other stuff. With Renzo, he never showed us low percentage moves that were fancy. He just didn't do that. And the way that I trained, I tried to train in a way that, okay, I could use this with gi, I could use this with no gi, and I know what to use and what not to use if I was fighting. Now you have some places where they're doing mystical jiu-jitsu with all these fancy moves where it's like 15 steps, and it's like the person's cooperating, and it's like nobody's doing that type of gymnastics to ever fight, and it's becoming unrealistic. And then the bad thing is a lot of the new people are getting obsessed with it because they go, holy shit, that's fancy. Well, watch an old Kung Fu movie, that's fancy too, right? That doesn't work in real life. Real life is kind of boring. It's like you have 2 arms and 2 legs and there's only so much you could do on concrete. So people are getting so caught up in the fancy style of jiu-jitsu now, where it's now becoming the modern mess, where people don't know how to differentiate what's realistic and what isn't. A good move, a counter, anything, a setup for a submission, usually is not more than 4 or 5 steps. A lot of times just 3. If you're doing a 15 move setup, it's fancy nonsense. It's almost like a 10-step sparring. You're doing all these things, the guy punches and he stays still, and you're hitting him 50 million places, and then you finally take him down. Nobody punches and freezes in time. Maybe if you're at a flash and you're moving fast enough where the person's moving super slow, that might be it, or Superman. But in real life, that doesn't work. So you see a lot of that now on Instagram, where I'm looking at these moves and I'm like, man, if that guy just turns his arm this way, everything is done. The move is gone. If the person reacts this way, the whole move is done before you even got up to the 9th step. So jiu-jitsu is becoming more like that. And this is dangerous for the beginners, because the beginners are all of a sudden getting addicted to that. So instead of the beginners focusing on the fundamentals and the high percentage moves and starting to chain them together, creating a system of moves with counters and counters to those counters, they're starting to learn these fancy things that are almost impossible to apply if somebody's not cooperating. So this is becoming the modern mess. So, when you're looking at jiu-jitsu videos, don't get addicted to the fancy stuff. The fancy stuff most likely doesn't work. I remember some of my students, they took private lessons with their previous teacher, and the only reason why they didn't leave their teacher moved to California. So they ended up with me and my friend. So I remember my friend was visiting and they took privates with him, and I go, show me what you learned. Let's go for real, and I'll let you get close to it, and if you get me, you get me. I finished them all in seconds and reversed it because what he showed them was fancy moves that they wanted to know that were low percentage moves, and it didn't work. So the thing is, again, on Instagram, you have a ton of that. You don't see really strong foundational jiu-jitsu working at a high level. You do see it at a high level. You see the other stuff not working at a high level. You just see it almost like choreographed fighting, like in the movies. That's not good jiu-jitsu. And then if somebody starts to get frustrated, they wonder why. Well, if that's what they're teaching at your school, that's a different story. But if you're not focusing on what you're learning at school and you're focused too much on Instagram and YouTube for the fancy stuff, because that's what this black belt did or this purple belt did, and you're a blue belt or a white belt, you got to start to rethink what your goals really are. And that makes a big difference, because you might be wasting a lot of time on stuff that's low percentage, nonsense moves that are easily counterable. Some moves I see, they're doing this and the guy's in the place. If the person just rotates their arm, the whole move is gone. But the beginner doesn't notice because that's why they're a beginner. But they're investing time in this, not knowing better. And the worst thing is when they take those moves to class, and instead of focusing what the teacher's teaching, they're practicing these special moves that nobody will know, how to counter. And this is a big waste of time. And this is what stunts your growth more than anything else. So the whole point of this video is don't get caught in the modern mess, because that's not going to make your jiu-jitsu good. Now that you see everybody's up to par for the most part with leg locks, what is being done now? All the old school stuff. And why do they call it old school stuff? Because that's the stuff that worked in every situation, whether it's fights, whether on the street, whether it's competition, and it put them at a high percentage of overcoming their opponent, surviving, and winning. And you're seeing a lot now of the old school stuff being applied slightly different, but that's overcoming most of the modern stuff. Because once somebody knows all the counters to that, it's like, damn. And another thing is, with that type of training, you need to usually be young, fit, athletic, and that's time bound. As you get older, everything changes, whether you want to or not. I never knew how it'd be to be 49 years old, almost 50 years old, with a million injuries. I never thought that was possible because I was like Superman in my 20s. I never got injured or anything like that. So now you say you've been doing jiu-jitsu for 20 years, and now all you have is the fancy stuff. You might not do good in class, you might not roll anymore, you definitely won't do it in competition. God forbid you get into a street fight, you might not be able to use anything, because all of that stuff relied on athleticism, flexibility, speed. Those things start to die down over time. So you want to try to learn something that's timeless, high percentage, and works and keeps your ass out of trouble. All right, so hopefully this helped. Hopefully I'll make some other videos to give you some more food for thought. If you like the video, please leave a thumbs up. And if you have any ideas of future videos, leave something in the comments. I already have some other stuff written down, but all the stuff that I'm trying to talk about is to help you get better with your jiu-jitsu, to give you a different mindset, or at least give you a goal to work at, so you could kind of sift through the nonsense and help yourself grow quicker. It's not about getting a black belt quicker. It's about understanding things so you can keep adding to your repertoire and becoming amazing at jiu-jitsu.